Georgekutty, the man who spent 2 entire films convincing us that he was just a simple, desperate father protecting his family, is now a film producer, making a movie about his own crimes. And somehow, he is surprised when people start asking questions again. Welcome to Drishyam 3, where the mastermind becomes the movie mogul, the suspense becomes a soap opera, and the franchise becomes, well, let's talk about it. And a quick heads up, I'll be discussing the general structure and tone of the film throughout this review. So if you want to go in completely blind to see the movie, bookmark this and come back later. No major plot points will be revealed until I give you a proper warning though, so you can go ahead. 4.5 years after Drishyam 2, Georgekutty, played once again by Mohanlal, has upgraded from being a cable TV operator to a theater owner and now a film producer. And what film has he produced? Well, it's one loosely based on the events that nearly destroyed his family. Strange choice, right? On paper, this is genuinely brilliant, a meta movie of sorts. The criminal who got away with it, fictionalizing its own crime, turning trauma into box office gold. There is something darkly poetic about that, right? You can't overrun your past, especially when you're actively marketing it. But the execution doesn't live up to the concept, not even close. Alright, let's talk about what made this franchise, the Drishyam franchise, so special. In Drishyam 1, Georgekutty wasn't a genius. He wasn't exactly a criminal, at least not in the strict sense of the word. He was just a father. An ordinary, uneducated man who did something extraordinary out of sheer desperation. You rooted for him in that movie because of the moral waters are a bit murky. Because you could imagine yourself even at least thinking of doing the same thing that he did in the first movie. On the other side, Drishyam 2 deepened a little bit in that. The guilt was mounting, the walls were closing in, a man buckling under the weight of an impossible burden. That was Drishyam 1 and Drishyam 2, somewhat relatable. By Drishyam 3, well, he is no longer the desperate father. He's a sly, calculating operator who manipulates the law whenever he wants, wherever he wants. He's moved from being a sympathetic anti-hero to just a criminal kingpin who happens to keep a family photo on his desk. That shift fundamentally breaks what made us care about the character. Now, there is one compelling thread in this movie, and that is the one where Georgekutty is reaping the fruits of his own crimes, in both ways. He's got the money, he's got the success, he's got somewhat of a new life, but at the same time his mind is fraying. The paranoia is setting in. That's the film I wanted to see. A man who won the game, but still losing his sanity. But does the film commit to explore that? Not really. This tension just simmers in the background before being drowned by everything else. In my opinion, a real shame. Structurally, the first half is a slow-burning journalist drama. There is an investigation, there is a nosy reporter digging into things, and for a while, you think you're watching a tense, methodical unraveling. The truth starts catching up with Georgekutty yet again, and there is some sense of genuine dread building up in the movie. But then, the second half happens. After the second half, the film devolves into mad, almost cartoonish violence, literally erasing the build-up it had worked for so hard during the first half of the movie, during the first hour. Now, don't get me wrong, the Drishyam series has always been characterized by convoluted plot twists. That is part of the fun. That's what you expect to see, right? But let me tell you that the twists here have left me flabbergasted. The twists here have left the charts, gone through the ceiling, exited the atmosphere, and probably they're currently orbiting Jupiter. There are layers to these twists, and it requires your full attention and maybe even a notebook to keep track of them. Sahadevan's daughter, for those who don't remember, was a character in the first movie that he feels he has some kind of vendetta against Drishyam because of what he did to him. Anyways, he is back. daughter is introduced in this film as that journalist that starts poking into things. From the very first scenes, we see her digging into the case. And on paper, this could be a new, compelling threat. A fresh pair of eyes, someone with both personal connection and a professional motivation to uncover the truth. Sadly, the entire subplot goes nowhere meaningful. It builds what it feels to be a slow-burning investigative thriller in the first half, only to be completely discarded when the film just lurches into violence. The irony is that I feel like the journalist arc had more legs than the mad revenge plot that replaces it. There was genuine dramatic potential in watching the truth get unearthed slowly through dog reporting. But the film treats it just as a filler, some kind of elaborate scaffolding that the builders forgot to remove. And then what happens to the daughter? Did she just vanish? What a waste of a promising character, and a waste of the audience investment. Right, I need to talk about the ending, and I can't express how I feel about it without getting specific. So if you haven't seen Drishyam 3 and you still plan to do it, skip ahead to this timestamp. I will leave a timestamp, as I said, in the screen. And anyways, if you already watched the movie, let's get into it. After 3 films of Georgekutty fighting, scheming, and sacrificing everything to maintain his innocence, stay out of prison to protect his family, the climax involves him essentially turning himself in. Shocking, right? Yes, it's on his own terms, it's very gracefully, very cinematically. He goes to prison for a bit, no big deal. Like, yeah, I did it. I'll do a little stretch inside, see you in a few. Stay safe. That's how awful. It's a betrayal of the previous 2 movies. The entire emotional engine of this franchise has been, is he gonna get caught? Can he keep the lie alive? And at the end of this movie, the answer is basically he just confesses and walks it off. It really feels like the last 15 minutes were just the main point of the movie, and everything else was just a filler. And this connects to a bigger issue. Drishyam 3 feels like a franchise being milked. The same trope, Georgekutty criminal genius outwitting the cops and the criminals. Now, the twists that felt earned now feel manufactured, like you're just waiting for them. You don't believe anything that's happening in the screen because you know they're just gonna go back on them. The stakes that once felt real now feel artificial. The character we love now feels like a caricature. And trust me, I say this with no pleasure. Drishyam 1 is one of the finest crime thrillers to come out of Indian cinema. Mohanlal is magnificent in the movies. The supporting cast, Meena, Siddiq, Asha, Sharad, have given this series real emotional weight. But even the best cast can't save a script that doesn't know what it wants to be. Now, a little bit on the technical side. The sound design is at points genuinely unbearable. Musical cues telegraph every single emotional beat. And it's so aggressive that it feels like the film doesn't trust you how to react on your own. Every shocking moment comes with a sting that screams, "Are you shocked? You should be shocked. Listen to the music." There are also some beats that I can only assume were meant to be comedy because of the musical cues, this sound.
Hello.
However, this doesn't feel like it belongs to this movie. It's like putting on a clown nose for a funeral. Drishyam 3 had a genuinely brilliant premise. The meta-movie concept, the psychological deterioration, success as its own prison. But it squanders nearly all of it. The pacing lurches from a promising slow burn to gratuitous chaos. The character arc betrays what made Georgekutty compelling. And the climax undermines the entire trilogy. It's like a magician doing the same trick for the 3rd time. The first time, you're amazed. It was impressive. The second time, you're impressed they managed to pull it off again. But by the 3rd time, you can already see the wires in the act. My honest recommendation, and it hurts me to say this, is skip it. If you love Drishyam 1 and Drishyam 2, and you should, I think they're really good, protect those memories. Maybe just go and rewatch the first one. You'll have a much better time. Anyways, let me know in the comments if you've seen this movie and whether you agree with me or think I'm being too harsh. Until next time, keep watching, keep thinking, and maybe don't make a movie about your own crimes. Just a thought.